Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira, on Rajya Sabha Television. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. Cyril Ramaphosa elected as South Africa's president after Jacob Zuma resigns due to pressure from the party. New president faces major hurdles to implement Mandela's vision. Opposition MPs ask him to deal with corruption first. Will balance relations with China and India, says Nepal's new Prime Minister KP Oli. New left alliance takes over the reins of the government 2 months after sweeping the polls in the Himalayan nation. Florida high school shooting leaves 17 dead. 19-year-old gunman Nicholas Cruz was a former student at the school who was expelled. Governor calls the school an act of pure evil. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull bans affairs between ministers and staff after high-profile sex scandal comes to light in Australia. Barnaby Joyce dumped from acting Prime Minister's position for having an affair with his former media advisor. Our top focus on the program this week. Cyril Ramaphosa was on Thursday confirmed as South Africa's new president, hours after scandal-plagued leader Jacob Zuma resigned. Ramaphosa, the leader of the ruling African National Congress party since December, was the only candidate nominated during a session of the South African Parliament. Some lawmakers in the National Assembly in Cape Town greeted the announcement on Ramaphosa, though members of the opposition Economic Freedom Fighters Party walked out of the chamber in protest during the debate. Here's a detailed report.
Cyril Ramaphosa was elected as South Africa's president in a parliamentary vote on Thursday and pledged to tackle endemic corruption after scandal-ridden Jacob Zuma resigned on orders from the ruling African National Congress.
I truly feel humbled to have been given this great privilege of being able to serve our people. I have with all members here because I do believe that when one is elected in this type of position, you basically become a servant of the people of South Africa. And I'll seek to execute that task with humility, with faithfulness, and with dignity as well. That is what I will seek to do.
Ramaphosa was elected unopposed as Zuma's permanent successor at Parliament and confirmed in the post by South African Chief Justice Mogoeng, who had earlier read out the former president's resignation letter.
Is there any other nomination? There are no further nominations. Only one candidate has been nominated, namely the Honorable Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. The nomination is in order. Accordingly, in terms of item 5 of Part A of Schedule 3 to the Constitution, I declare the Honorable Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa duly elected President of the Republic of South Africa.
Commenting on the new president, opposition leaders said Ramaphosa would not solve the country's problems alone, and they hope Ramaphosa would put South Africa first, leaving the party's interests behind him.
I certainly hope that the team that Mr. Ramaphosa puts behind him is going to be a team that puts South Africa first, because this last team has consistently put Mr. Zuma and their party ahead of the interests of the country and of this parliament.
For Cyril Ramaphosa, he is not a bad guy, but would be making a mistake to think that he's going to solve the problems of South Africa alone. Neither can we trust the ANC to take us forward from here, given that the corruption has been eating into their body politic like a cancerous tumor.
Jacob Zuma resigned as president of South Africa on Wednesday, reluctantly heeding orders by the ruling African National Congress to bring an end to his 9 scandal-plagued years in power. In a 30-minute farewell address to the nation, 75-year-old Zuma said he disagreed with the way the ANC had shoved him towards an early exit after the election of Cyril Ramaphosa as party president in December, but would accept its orders.
No motion of no confidence or impeachment, for they are the lawful mechanisms for the people of this beautiful country to remove their president. Therefore, come to the decision to resign as President of the Republic with immediate effect.
South Africans expressed relief to Jacob Zuma's resignation. Some residents said that it was about time Zuma stepped down so that the country can move forward.
Corruption has obviously been at the forefront of a lot of our problems. So I think it's a good decision from the ANC and from the Republic of South Africa.
He has served the quota of his term, even though he didn't finish it. I guess it's good for a change.
The newly elected South African president faces an uphill battle in revitalizing growth, creating jobs and stamping out a culture of graft in a nation still polarized by race and inequality more than 2 decades after the end of white minority rule. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And joining me for a chat this week to talk about this is former Ambassador Virendra Gupta. Ambassador, thank you for joining me on the program. Cyril Ramaphosa has been named the new President of South Africa. What are the biggest challenges ahead of him?
Well, I'm happy that Cyril Ramaphosa, who's a veteran freedom fighter, a very senior member of ANC, very highly respected for his business acumen and governance skills, has taken charge of the country. There is a lot of hope riding on him. The developments in the last 1 week attest to a very dynamic political process within the country. It's a democratic process. And insofar as we are concerned, I must say, first of all, that India has very strong relationship with South Africa. It's a very important relationship.
Indeed.
Not merely in terms of historical sense, not in terms of empathy, of shared struggle against colonial injustice and apartheid, but also more recently in terms of partnership in IPSA and BRICS and bilaterally. It's a very, very strong relationship. We have a very large amount of trade and investment ties. And the quality of trade, the quality of business relationship is of extreme strategic importance to us, because we bring a lot of coal from South Africa, we bring a lot of phosphate from South Africa, and we manage to sell a lot of our manufactured items. So South Africa is one of our most important trading partners, in fact the largest. If you took out the oil component from the trade, then South Africa is by far the largest trading partner. Now, challenges are many. South Africa is the largest economy. It has gone through a very stagnant period, partly because the commodities on which the South African economy is very largely based, the commodities have been facing a very stagnant market. So the new president will have a very challenging task. The country has very high unemployment rate. I believe the biggest challenge would be in the area of job creation, would be in the area of human resource development. And in fact, in the human resource development area, India was beginning to collaborate with South Africa. A lot of young people qualifying from colleges need finishing for employment. And there were some agencies, with some organizations which were involved in bringing students from South Africa into India.
Will corruption be an issue?
Well, corruption is always an issue in every country. You know, in India it is an issue. South Africa, it has been an issue. Certain allegations have been raised against the former president. And I'm sure South Africa has a strong judicial system that they will be able to unravel the whole thing about it, the truth of it. But indeed, corruption is an issue. Whether or not it is in fact very rampant. But what is important in our countries, and I believe perception is even more important than the reality, there is a widespread perception that South Africa has been badly affected by corruption. So I think the new president will have a very challenging task. Will have to lead by example.
You know, talking about the old president now, Jacob Zuma, he was very reluctant to go. You know, he tried his best to stay in power. He said he would like to complete his term until 2019 and then leave, but that has not happened. Where does it leave him and the party on the whole?
Well, you see, Jacob Zuma, as is Cyril Ramaphosa, are part of ANC, and we've known ANC for a very long time. India has had very good relations with ANC. I mean, you know, going back to Mahatma Gandhi's times. ANC is a very cadre-based party. So whether or not, and that's what Zuma was saying, that these were his personal views. He wanted to stay on to complete his term as the Constitution provided. But as a soldier of the party, as a member of the party, if the party decides, so the party really ordered. They were internally, party decided that it had to recall, it had to request Zuma's recall. And I think Zuma obeyed those instructions.
And one very quick reaction on this subject, and then we can move on, Ambassador. You know, as far as India-South Africa ties are concerned, you know, you spoke about it in your opening remark about how important and how crucial ties are between the two countries. Does the election of a new president in South Africa change anything between India and South Africa?
No, it does not, because there is a widespread warmth and cordiality and goodwill. Mr. Ramaphosa is a very pragmatic man, veteran leader of ANC. He understands India. I have met him many times during my stint in South Africa, and I have reason to believe that he would be very well disposed towards India. And under his leadership, we can look forward to a continuation of very strong ties between India and South Africa.
Okay, all right. Do stay with us, Ambassador, because I'm going to take your reaction on the next story that we're going to talk about as well. CPN-UML chairperson KP Sharma Oli has been sworn in as Nepal's Prime Minister over 2 months after his left alliance routed the ruling Nepali Congress in the country's historic parliamentary and local polls. President Vidya Devi Bhandari appointed 65-year-old KP Oli as the country's 41st Prime Minister. Oli had earlier served as Prime Minister from 2015 to 2016. Oli said he would promote peace, stability and development in Nepal and would balance relations with China and India equally. Oli's left-wing alliance is considered to be closer to China, while outgoing leader Dioba is widely seen as being closer to India. Nepal has been embroiled in political instability since a decade-long Maoist conflict ended in 2006 and the monarchy was abolished 2 years later. Oli is the 26th Prime Minister since protests led to the establishment of a parliamentary democracy in 1990. Well, still with me is former Ambassador Virendra Gupta. Ambassador, what do you make of the developments in Nepal and how is it going to have, if at all, any impact here in India?
Well, the new Prime Minister has said that he will seek to create a balance between India and China. And you said in your remarks that Mr. Oli is regarded as, his alliance is regarded as pro-China. Now, I feel that these are rhetorical labels. China, in Nepal, the political leadership has to leverage its position. We must remember that Nepal is joined with India in history, in culture, in religion, and geography.
But is that enough, Ambassador?
No, that's not enough. But that would give a very large degree of connectivity with India. If I were to put numbers to it, in 70, 75, 80% of Nepal's dealings and external interface, Nepal is connected with India. But we must have the self-assuredness and confidence on our part that Nepal would need some space. And that if Nepal is seeking to engage with other countries, and why not China? Because China is also Nepal's neighbor, and China is an important player. China has resources which it can provide for Nepalese development. So if I were a Nepalese, I would naturally look at China to supplement the efforts of India. Now, that doesn't, if a Nepalese Prime Minister seeks to turn towards China to garner supplementary resources, in India, we should not take it amiss, thinking that that Nepalese leader is abandoning India and running towards China. The fact of the matter is, the geography and the culture and everything which I mentioned dictates that Nepal is very closely will always very closely remain closely linked with India.
Sure.
And yet, you know, Nepal needs other countries. Nepal needs Western countries. Nepal needs China, because Nepalese needs are enormous. What we have to do on our part is focus on undertaking development projects, which we have actually been doing in the last 1 or 2 years. We've done a remarkable amount of work in moving forward on power projects, in moving forward on transmission line projects, in moving forward on highway projects, and moving forward on railway projects. And I think that is the way to go. Then we must be able to convince the Nepalese leadership, whoever it is. And we cannot create a perception that we like A more than B. We have to deal with whoever is in the leadership, because we deal with entire Nepal. And we have to focus on those projects so that the Nepalese leadership begin to think that these are their projects and their interest lies in pushing forward those projects.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that, Ambassador. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and sharing your views on both the subjects that we discussed here on World Panorama.
Thank you.
On that note, of course, it's time for a short break, but we'll be back with much more on the other side. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome back to the National Elections Quiz 2018. And today, 6 teams from the Special Central Zone will contest for a place in this grand finale. The team from Uttar Pradesh gets the wrong answer, so they get -5. But looks like the team from Delhi had the answer, and you should just be a little quicker on the buzzer next time.
चुनाव में लगी पूंजी
ये पूरा आंसर नहीं है. It should secure at least 6% of valid votes polled in at least how many states? I'm sorry, Delhi, you have pressed the buzzer before I said that, so you get -5. -5 to the team from Uttar Pradesh as well. -5 to the team from Chhattisgarh. Wrong answer. -5 also to the team from Madhya Pradesh. This is looking to be a really close match, and we're going to figure out in just one question who the winners of this national semi-final are.
Watch the 4th semi-final of National Elections Quiz. Presented to you by Election Commission of India, Sunday at 9 AM and 3:30 PM. Only on Rajya Sabha TV.
Welcome back. You're watching World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira. At least 17 people are dead after a 19-year-old man opened fire at a high school campus in Parkland, Florida. The suspect was Nicholas Cruz, a former student at the school who had been expelled. He escaped with fleeing students but was later arrested. Here's a report.
A 19-year-old gunman opened fire on Wednesday at a Florida high school he had previously been expelled from, killing 17 people before he was arrested by police.
It's horrible. It's catastrophic. And there is saddened to say that 17 people lost their lives.
The violence erupted shortly before dismissal at Marjorie Stoneman High School in Parkland, about 45 miles north of Miami. Live television footage showed students streaming out of the building as dozens of police and emergency services personnel swarmed the area.
We have 17 confirmed victims. 12 victims were within the building. Two victims are outside, just outside the building. One victim is on the street at the corner of Pine Island. And two folks, people lost their lives at the hospital.
The gunman was identified as Nicholas Cruz, who previously attended the school and was expelled for unspecified disciplinary reasons.
He's 19 years old. He was born in 1998 in September. He was a former student of Douglas High School. He got expelled for disciplinary reasons. I don't know the specifics.
Florida Governor Rick Scott called the shooting an act of pure evil.
How could this ever happen in this country? How could this happen in this state? This is a state that is focused on keeping all of our children safe. You come to the conclusion this is just absolutely pure evil. This state does not tolerate violence. We have law enforcement that will always show up to defend our safety.
Students who were inside the school during the shooting described their tales of horror.
We were talking to each other, but everyone kept swishing each other, and just everyone was pretty scared, and some people were crying, and just people were trying to comfort each other and saying it was gonna be all right, and that we were gonna get out of here.
We heard gunshots. We heard people knocking on the door saying they were police, but I guess they weren't. They were trying to trick us to come out. The first ones I heard, I mean, they were nonstop, 2 big shots, and then everyone just panicked. It was running everywhere.
Wednesday's shooting in Florida is the deadliest school shooting since 26 people were killed at a Connecticut school, Sandy Hook, in 2012. It is the 6th school shooting incident this year in the US that has either wounded or killed students. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on, now Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull on Thursday banned sex between ministers and staff and lashed out at his deputy for a shocking error of judgment by having an affair with the press secretary. Deputy Australian Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce, a Catholic who campaigned on family values and married for 24 years, is expecting a child with his former staffer in April. Here's more. Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull said he will prohibit sex between ministers and their staff after it was revealed his deputy had an affair with a former staffer. In a press briefing, he condemned Barnaby Joyce for a shocking error of judgment.
Barnaby has acknowledged his fault, his error, his grief about his conduct. He has to consider his own position, obviously. These are matters for Barnaby Joyce to reflect on.
Joyce will take a leave of absence from Monday amid scrutiny over whether he breached ministerial standards. Both Joyce and Turnbull deny that any rules as defined were broken. But the Prime Minister said he would overhaul the truly deficient ministerial code of conduct.
I'm saying that from today, this change is being made in a way that is very, very clear. Couldn't be clearer. This is a bright line. And I'm saying that in these workplaces here, in ministers' offices, ministers must behave accordingly. They must not. I don't care whether they are married or single. I don't care. They must not have sexual relations with their staff. That's it.
The scandal has dominated Australian politics since last Wednesday when Joyce's affair with the media advisor Vicky Campion was publicly revealed. The high-profile Conservative had only returned to Parliament in December after briefly losing his job over his New Zealand dual citizenship. On Tuesday, Joyce publicly apologised to his estranged wife, Natalie Joyce. They had 4 daughters and Campion for what he called a searing personal experience.
I am incredibly sorry for the hurt that I've caused Natalie, my daughters and Vicky since my marriage broke up last year. I say that again. I'm incredibly sorry and apologise to the people of New England, but appreciate their immense support that I've received, immense support. In regards comments by the Prime Minister yesterday at his press conference, I have to say that in many instances they caused further harm. I believe they were in many instances inept and most definitely in many instances unnecessary. This was a personal issue that's been dragged into the public arena, and I don't believe people should be resigning in any job over personal issue.
Turnbull said such behaviour was not acceptable today in 2018 and ministers must oversee respectful workplaces.
I'm not here to moralise, but we must recognise that whatever may have been acceptable or to which a blind eye was turned in the past, today, in 2018, it is not acceptable for a minister to have a sexual relationship with somebody who works for them. It is a very bad workplace practice, and everybody knows that no good comes of it.
The Prime Minister's declaration late in the afternoon and his direct reflection on the behaviour of his colleague followed confirmation earlier in the day that Joyce will not act in the top job as is customary when Turnbull departs Australia to visit Washington next week. The Liberals govern in coalition with the Nationals, and when the Prime Minister is overseas, the leader of the National Party acts in the role. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television. Well, China's state television staged an international Spring Festival gala on Thursday night to celebrate the Lunar New Year. This year's show highlighted a particularly international blend of performers from countries such as the United Kingdom, Azerbaijan, Kenya, Croatia, Kazakhstan, France, Italy, Latvia and the United States. Since 1983, the CCTV Spring Festival Gala has become an annual fixture for Chinese families on the eve of the Lunar New Year. It remains the longest running and most watched show in the history of Chinese television. I'm going to leave you with these visuals. Until next time, this is Frank Pereira signing off.